Good evening students and welcome back to the class. So once again I am here with you people and I would like to continue with the chapter that we were doing in the last class. So if I'm not wrong, in the last class we basically started doing something related to what are the different types of bonds that can be formed. I remember talking about the formation of a sigma bond. I also remember talking about the formation of a pi bond. So when I was discussing the details about the formation of sigma and pi bond, then we were doing certain characteristic of overlapping, right? So let's start with the details of pi bond formation once again, and once we'll be able to do what are the different examples of pi bond, then I'll tell you how we came into a new topic, which is hybridization. So today maybe I will be teaching you something related to hybridization, or maybe I'll just give you a hint about what is hybridization, depending upon the pace with which we continue the session, okay? So let's start our topic with the detailed discussion of pi bond. But before that, I think I should give you a recap of what we did in the last class. Last class, we had done the detailed discussion about a sigma bond and a pi bond. So when I was discussing in details about sigma bond, I said that this is obtained because of coaxial overlap. Coaxial overlap means along the axis the overlap was taking place. And when we were talking about the formation of a pi bond, I said that this is collateral. So I have written the wrong spelling, so I should have written collateral overlapping. The second point that I wanted to discuss in the case of sigma and pi bond was, this is always the first bond that could be formed, whereas when we talk about the pi bond, it can either be the second or the third bond, but it can never be the first bond that can be formed. Okay, so pi bond is never the first bond that is formed. Pi bond is either the second bond or the third bond that could be formed. Now moving on to the third point, we say that in the case of a sigma bond, it is much stronger. Whereas if you talk about alone if you are talking about the pi bond, it's a weaker bond. And why did we say that this is a stronger bond and this is a weaker bond? This we said on the basis of our fourth point. Here the extent of overlap is more, whereas in this fourth case we'll say so we have a lesser extent of overlapping taking place here, rather we have a more extent of overlapping taking place in the right hand side of the pi bond, right? One last point that I didn't teach you in the last class, and this is, so the rotation is possible about the sigma bond, whereas the fifth point in this particular case is no rotation possible. Again, I will not be teaching you the details about this, why no rotation is possible. Like as of now, I won't be teaching you the details. I'll first do some examples and then I'll tell you why the rotation is not possible in the case of a pi bond. Okay. So having done this much in our last class, this helps me move on to my discussion related to the examples where a pi bond could be obtained. And the first example that we will be doing today will be a molecule of oxygen. Now how a molecule of oxygen will be formed? We will write oxygen as 1s2, 2s2, 2p4. This is how we write oxygen, right? So now we will draw it as 1s2, 2s2, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Let us consider that this is Py, this is Px, and this is Pz. It's my choice, right? It's your choice. You can consider this to be Pz also, you can consider this to be Px and Py also. So let me just, for a relief to my mind, I'll say this is Pz, whereas this is Px and Py orbital. Okay? And you know, right, during the bond formation, the only possibility, the only thing that you need is the half-filled orbitals. So we have either 2px, so this is 2s, this is 2p, and this is 1s. So I will say that we do not need 1s, we do not need 2s, we do not even need 2pz. The only two orbitals that I need are px and py orbital. First, I'll ask you to draw the Lewis dot structure. So this is how you draw the Lewis dot structure, right? And as per the explanation that I gave you in the last class, I said that this first bond so formed should be a sigma bond and the second bond so formed can be a pi bond, right? Now see, how will we draw the two oxygen atoms? Now let us draw one oxygen atom here and there is another oxygen atom. So okay, one oxygen atom is here. Now it is having one p orbital which was 2px having one electron like this, right? Now the same oxygen atom is having one more perpendicular p orbital which is 2py, right? So you know, right, that 2px, 2py and 2pz are all perpendicular to each other. So these are the two orbitals that I have shown here. Now let us talk about, this is first oxygen atom. Let us talk about the second oxygen atom. So in the case of second oxygen atom, we have one 2px orbital here. This is O2. So I am not writing oxygen as the second atom, rather I should say, so that you should not get confused, I am just writing it as O dash. Okay? So this is the 2px orbital of oxygen atom, second oxygen atom, right? Now in the same particular way I can draw another with 2py, right? So now I want that these two oxygen atoms, which is O and O dash, they should be approaching each other. So listen to me very carefully, what happens when they try to approach each other. So let's see. Let me write it down here only. So when the two oxygen atoms try to approach each other, the bond formation will take place. So see here very carefully. Now I am trying to bring them this much close to each other. Okay, let's say this much close possibility is there. So one is like this, one is like this. So their 2px orbital will club with each other, will overlap with each other, right? And thus it leads to the formation of O single bond or sigma bond O. Clear? Now see what happens. The another one is something like this, and here also the another one is something like this. Guys, I am so sorry I am not able to show it symmetrically. I will tell you why. But now you can see there is some region in the space where they are overlapping with each other, and this will lead to the formation of the second bond, which will be considered as a pi bond. Okay, but then this is so cumbersome, like I mean it's not very good, it's not very decent to draw it like this. So what scientists do, so they will show first oxygen atom somewhere here, they will show the another oxygen atom close to this oxygen atom. I mean they'll maintain a particular distance, let's say one electron is like this, now the another oxygen atoms like this. Fine. So this leads to the formation of a sigma bond along the x-axis. Now what will happen? You will be taking a pi another. So this was 2px, this was also 2px of O dash, this was of O, right? Now similarly this is one electron is there, this is 2py of O, and the another one I will draw somewhere here, this is 2py of O dash, right? Now since I am not showing that they will be merging with each other, let me draw them of equal size. Since I am saying that they are not merging with each other, they are actually merging, but it's just that I have not shown them as if they are merging with each other, right? So what we do? What we will do, we will show a dotted line like this, okay? So see what I was trying to tell you, that first we will draw a sigma bond something like this, okay, fine. Having drawn the sigma bond like this, so now you can say this particular region where overlapping is taking place is this is the sigma bond, okay. Now let us understand what happens in the next thing. Now the two p orbitals which are shown like this, generally you know what we do, you are right if you can draw this particular diagram also, like you are trying to bring the two nuclei even more closer to each other. So when you try to bring the two nuclei closer to each other, so see you have brought them this close to each other. But then here comes a problem. So if you show them this much away, then there can be, it appears as if there is no interaction, but it's nothing like this. If you observe the three-dimensional shape, you know, right, this is nothing but this is the electron cloud. And the electron cloud can be like this, it can be like this, can be like this. So for sure there will be some common region where they will merge with each other, okay. So see I have here drawn this as smaller one but these as bigger ones, but if I draw everything symmetrically, then yes, this kind of thing is possible, that these two overlap with each other leading to the formation of a pi bond, and these two overlap with each other leading to the formation of sigma bond. And thus we draw the structure like O with a sigma bond, and the second bond that we have got is a pi bond. Fine. So this is how we move on with the structure of oxygen molecule. Now we will be starting, and now we'll start our discussion about a nitrogen molecule. So let me tell you how a nitrogen molecule will then be drawn. So considering a nitrogen molecule, so this will be N, triple bond N, right? The first bond so formed will be a sigma bond, the second bond will be a pi bond, and even the third bond in the case of N, triple bond N. This will again be a pi bond. So see, this is sigma, pi, pi. Fine. Now let's see how this is drawn. Look at one nitrogen atom, N1, which is 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. So 1s2 is of no use to me because it is fully filled. Then I say that even 2s2 is of no use to me because it is also fully filled. So I am only having the 2p orbitals which are available, which are half filled, and thus they can be used for bonding, right? So when I will be talking about the 2p orbitals of nitrogen, then this time I need to take into consideration both the x, like all of x, y and z orbitals. Let me try to draw. I need three colors for the same. How to draw? Look here. Considering this as x-axis, this as y-axis, and this as z-axis, okay. I am trying to consider like this. Now let me draw parallel. This is again the y-axis. And this is the z-axis, right? I have just drawn them parallelly. Now see, for first atom, so we have three orbitals for every nitrogen. One is 2px, 2py and 2pz. Let us say for first nitrogen atom, this is the 2px orbital that I have drawn. Let me color it so that you do not get confused. And each orbital will be having one unpaired electron. This is 2px, right? Now let us draw the another one. This is 2pz. Color it in white. Now do not feel as if 2py and 2px and 2pz are merging with each other. No. So they are like this. Okay, none of the orbital is merging with each other. So here I am just showing them bulky, so it appears as if they are merging with each other. And then draw 2py. Like this I have shown. Okay. Now this is nitrogen number 1, N1. Okay. Now let us draw the nitrogen number 2, which I will start somewhere from here and I will show it like this. So this is N single bond N formed along the x-axis. And since the overlapping is taking place coaxially along the axis, so this is known as the sigma bond. Clear? Now see, I will darken the circle here so that from the complete board you can see this dark circle. So I think this much is okay. Now let us draw the 2py. I will draw the 2py like this. I will draw the 2py like this. Now see here very carefully, when I am talking about 2py, you do agree, right? When they are so close to each other, they should be merging with each other, they should be overlapping with each other. But it's not possible to show the overlapping in the board. So I'll just show it with the spiral lines like this. So now we understood that yes, there is a second bond so formed, which is known as the pi bond, right? Moving further, if I say, let us draw the another orbit, which is 2pz. Right? So now see, 2pz are exactly parallel to each other. So even they will be touching each other, and this will lead to the formation of the second pi bond. So this is overall the third bond, but the overall second pi bond. And hence this is how you can see the formation of a nitrogen molecule, which is written with the formula N2. Okay. So I think this much is also very much clear. So this, whatever we have done as of now, should be clear to you. Now one more thing, like I'll tell you, so many papers I have seen this particular question is asked, that you need to count the total number of sigma bonds and pi bonds which are available in the structure. They'll give you a random structure, like for example, they'll give you a structure like and they'll tell you to calculate the total number of sigma and pi bonds formed in this particular structure. So how you have to do? First, draw the structure. Draw the expanded form so that each carbon should be shown attached to other atom with the help of bond. Okay, so count the total number of sigma bonds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Don't say there are 10 sigma bonds. The first bond is the sigma bond and the second bond is a pi bond. Okay. Now if someone asks you to tell the total number of single bonds and double bonds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 single bonds are there, whereas 1 double bond is there. Okay, so you should be very much clear in telling how, in finding out the number of sigma and pi bonds in the structure. For example, I give you another question. So this is the structure. You have to find out the total number of sigma and pi bonds. So how will you do? So draw it like this. One benzene is there. This much you know, right, from your 10th standard. The details we will be doing later on also. Each carbon has to satisfy a valency of 4. So draw the remaining hydrogens. Then we have a CH, double bond C, H, then this. So each carbon should be having 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then C. Then triple bond CH. Am I right? So this is the structure. How to calculate the total number of sigma bonds? First calculate for hydrogens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This bond 7, 8, 9. Right? 9 sigma bonds are here till this in this structure. Then we have, this is also the first bond, so sigma bond 10, 11. Then we have 12. Then we have a 13, we have a 14, 15, 16. Only one, 17, 18. So there are a total of 18 sigma bonds. And now let us count the number of pi bonds. So 1, 2, 3. Then 4. Then do not be confused. These are two separate pi bonds. So this is 5th and this is 6th. So this is how you can easily figure out the total number of sigma and pi bonds which will be available in a particular structure. Okay. Now I'll tell you one important thing which I didn't tell you in the beginning of the lecture, and this was, how do we say that pi bonds so formed cannot be rotated. So we have written down this particular statement so many times that rotation about a sigma bond is possible however, rotation about a pi bond is not possible. However, rotation about pi bond is not possible. Now see, what does this statement mean that rotation about sigma bond is possible? So when I was talking about sigma bond, okay, let's do one thing. Let me get some props for this thing so that I can explain it to you very nicely. You note it down, whatever is there on the board, quickly note down that thing and then I will get some props for you. Okay, so I think you people have noted this down. I have actually got the prop for you. I don't know whether it will be useful for the purpose I have got it for. I really don't know, but let's see. So I have written on board that the rotation about a sigma bond is possible, however, the rotation about the pi bond is not possible. Let me draw the diagram and let me try to explain you. When I am talking about a sigma bond, right, you do agree it is formed something like this. And this is our axis. So this is what I have been saying, right? You rotate it and this particular bundle like thing or this particular overlapping structure will also be there. I mean, this will be common. Nothing will happen, right? The bond will not break even on rotation. If you rotate, things are going to be good. No bond breaking will occur. Okay. However, when I am asking you to talk about the pi bond, see here carefully. This is the sigma bond that is there and this is the pi bond that you will be getting. Now, since both of them are in the plane of paper, in the plane of the board, so we will show the overlapping something like this. Now when I am asking you to rotate the bond, see, when you keep this fixed, you keep it fixed. But when you will try to take it, like try to take it out of the plane of paper, it was like this, try to take it out. Now there won't be any bonding, because bond could be formed only when the two will be parallel to each other. The time or the day when you try to make them like perpendicular to each other, the bond will break. That is why we say that pi bond can't be rotated. And if you try to rotate the pi bond, everything vanishes. I mean, the bond will break. So now I would like to show you something. I don't know whether you will be able to visualize it or not. So these are two pencils I have taken, right? And I have connected them with the help of a tape. So I just pasted them, right? Now this pencil, which is of Natraj, and the other pencil which is yellow in color, I don't know. So they are representing like two atoms. So one is this particular orbital, one is this particular orbital, and the tape is there. So the region where the tape is there is the overlapping, okay. So I should not have kept these two spaces also, but let's say whatever. Now if I am trying to rotate, see, I am trying to rotate the red one. You do agree, right? Nothing happens, see. When you are trying to rotate the red one, the tape position doesn't change. The tape is this much only. Or when I try to rotate the yellow one, see, you try to rotate any one, whatever is convenient, see. I think you can visualize, right? The tape rotation still doesn't affect the movement. So you try to bring about rotation, see, now it is free. You try to bring about the rotation, the bond can be rotated. The bond doesn't break, the tape doesn't break, right? So this was about sigma bond. Now come here and see, these are the two pencils I have taken. When I took the two pencils like this and they were coming like this, right, when they were coming along the axis. So this was coaxial bond, this was sigma bond. Now what I am trying to do, these are the two pencils, these are the two orbitals, right. Make sure the blue part of the pencil can merge only with the blue part, and this nib of the pencil could merge with the nib. It is not possible that the blue part can merge with the nib or the blue part can merge with the nib. No. Why so? There is answer to this particular question also. You know, right? Orbitals are nothing but they are closely related to wave functions, right? And you know, right, that the wave functions have both positive and negative values. This also you know. So if I am talking about a p orbital, so see, if I am talking about a p orbital, then the p orbital will be something like this: positive, negative, positive, negative. So when you will be combining them, make sure positive should go with the positive, negative should go with the negative. Don't ever do like plus minus, minus plus. This is not any bond. I'll tell you the details later on, okay. So now at least I think you people can agree that if this is the blue part of the pencil, this has to be blue part. If this is the nib of the pencil, this has to be the nib or the tip of the pencil, right. So see here, this is the pi bond that I have shown. So you can see these are the two centers, these are the two upper lobes, these are the two bottom lobes, right? And these are the pi bonds which are holding the pencils together. And for sure this cannot be formed alone, this can be formed only with the sigma bond. So sigma should be formed first and then only the pi bond should be formed, okay. Now let's see, when I am trying to rotate the sigma bond, let me keep it aside. When I am trying to rotate the sigma bond, you can see, yes, the sigma bond is rotated. You can see the rotation, right? No problem. But when I am trying to rotate the pi bond, what I should do? I should keep one fixed and I should bring the other down, or I should keep the left hand side fixed and keep the bottom down. Oh no, no, it cannot. I cannot. See, so the way I was doing it here, see, you can see I can do it here. So once the red pencil is on the top, now the red pencil is in the front, now the red pencil is at the bottom, and now the red pencil is at the back. That means all the 360-degree angle rotation is possible about the sigma bond. But try to do it here. Try to bring it. No guys, see, I can't. I mean, It's very difficult. I just can't, because if you try to bring it, either the bond will break. I do not have any scissors kept over here, but let's say, let me do this also for you. So if I am trying to bring them go away from each other, see. So if I try to break them, if I try to rotate, for sure the pencil will break out. The bond will break out, then only, see, you break out the bond, then you can do the rotation. But if bond was there, you couldn't rotate. Break the bond, do the rotation. So this rotation is possible only and only if bond will break. If bond is not breaking, rotation is not possible. And I think this is what I had written. See here on the board. If you rotate the sigma bond, the bond rotates and there is no bond breaking. If, however, you rotate the pi bond, it cannot be rotated because they are fixed. If you try to bring about the rotation, make sure, keep it very clear in your mind that the bond will surely break. Clear? So this was what I wanted to teach you regarding the stability or instability regarding the rotation or non-rotation of a sigma and a pi bond. Fine? So everything till here was according to VBT, and everything we have sorted out at its place. So everything is going well. Now let me try to bring about a new molecule. So till now we have studied the formation of hydrogen molecule H2, we have studied the formation of HF molecule, we studied the formation of F2 molecule, Cl2 molecule, then we studied the formation of oxygen, nitrogen. So they were diatomic molecules, right? They were either homonuclear or they were heteronuclear. Now I don't want to talk about a diatomic molecule, rather I want to talk about a triatomic molecule. So let's see, when I'm trying to talk about another molecule which is BeCl2. So what should happen? But before I consider the molecule BeCl2, let me talk to you people a little about the S characters and the P characters. So this is not any separate topic, but since whenever I teach chemical bonding, I generally prefer teaching the percentage S and percentage P character before moving on to the topic hybridization. So let's say I am Sakshi, right, and you know I am a girl. So what will be my characteristics? So you will be like, ma'am, you are a girl. Okay, so you must be beautiful. Okay, you must be talkative, because girls generally are talkative, right? No offense to anyone who is not talkative, but girls generally are talkative. Girls are more intelligent compared to boys, right? Girls are more hardworking, so am I, right? So I'm more intelligent, more hardworking, more beautiful, let's say more charming, everything, right? I am the best, right? So this is about me, S character. Now suppose there is a boy standing here close to me, and now I ask you to tell the characteristics of that boy. So you'll be like, ma'am, he is dumb, he is not at all smart, he is not at all hardworking, he is not at all handsome, blah 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 blah, right? So these are the characteristics of that particular boy. Similarly, I need to define some special characteristics for S orbital and some special characteristics for P orbital. Let us draw the two orbitals. So these are the two orbitals, one is S orbital, one is P orbital. The very first characteristic of an S orbital is that it is bulky. See, it is so cute. It is like a bulky orbital, right? And it is thick, it is fat. So one characteristic of S orbital is that it is spherical, whereas if I talk about the P orbital, the very first characteristic is that it is dumbbell shaped, right? So S is like spherical, P is like dumbbell shaped. The second characteristic is S is so cute, right? One very small and very fat one. So S is fat, it is thick, and I should call it a mota orbital, right? It is very bulky. But when I talk about a p orbital, then you do agree with me that it is an elongated orbital, but it is very thin, right? Moving on to the third characteristic, do you agree that always s orbital is close to the nucleus and then comes the turn of p orbital? Like for example, we have 1s, we don't have 1p. We have 2s closer to the nucleus and 2p little far away, right? So we say that s orbital is close to the nucleus and this is far away from the nucleus, right? Now you also agree, right? If anything is closer to the nucleus, that means it wants to be close to the nucleus. It wants to have the shared pair of electron towards itself. So can I say the s orbitals are also electronegative in nature, whereas when you talk about the p orbital, they are less electronegative in nature, right? So S is spherical, S is thick, S is fat, it is close to the nucleus, it is electronegative. And one more thing, S is a small orbital, right? Whereas the p orbital is a bigger or a lengthier or a long orbital, right? So these are certain characteristics that you need to remember. Now for example, if there is any orbital which is like this, so you will say, ma'am, it is purely S, so it is 100% S, right? That means all the characteristics which an S should have, they are there with this particular orbital, so the percentage of S character is 100%. Now when you are talking about a p orbital, if all the characteristics, these 5-6 characteristics that I have written here, if all of them are there with this particular orbital, so you will call it as 100% p. Now you do agree, right? There may be any particular new orbital which is having some percentage of S and some percentage of p. I mean, we can design a new orbital like that, right? It is possible to design. Manufacturing can be done. Artificially we can manufacture the orbitals, right? Okay, now you might be thinking, ma'am, how come this topic is correlated to what we were doing for a new molecule? Yes, everything you will be able to join all the dots, but little later on, right? Okay. Now I give you another question about a molecule which is BeCl2, and let us try to answer the question with respect to valence bond theory. So suppose whenever there is a question, you need to talk about BeCl2, you will first draw the Lewis dot structure. Beryllium is 1s2, 2s2, so we only need to talk about the valence electron, so it is 2s2. Now there are 2 chlorine atoms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? This is the structure of BeCl2 that I have drawn. So the overall structure should be, so beryllium has to form 2 bonds. What I am saying? Beryllium should form 2 bonds to become stable, right? Now see, beryllium is 1s2, 2s2, of no use 2s2, 2p is there, but it is empty. What should I be doing? You remember while I was talking about the bond formation according to valence bond theory, I said that whatever number of bonds you need to form, you should be having that many number of unpaired orbitals. But there is something wrong. You can see beryllium has to form 2 bonds, right? 2 bonds, one with Cl, one another with Cl. But there is no unpaired electron in the case of beryllium atom. So when beryllium atom is not having any unpaired electron, how can I be using the valence bond theory to tell the answer of the molecule BeCl2? I mean, this is tough, right? So either the VBT should have said you can use one fully filled and one empty. But there was nothing like that. VBT simply said that if you want to form 2 bonds, you should be coming with 2 unpaired electrons. But now beryllium is like, I don't have 2 unpaired electrons, but still I am forming a compound. So there must be some magic going on in me, right? And now it's our duty to figure out what is that magic spell which is there in BeCl2, which helped beryllium to make the whole molecule BeCl2. Okay. So here there was some modification that was to be introduced in the case of valence bond theory. I mean, VBT was still here only, till oxygen, nitrogen, VBT was successful. But as soon as we were to talk about the bigger molecules, like as soon as we were to talk about BeCl2, we were to talk about BCl3, BF3, VBT couldn't answer us the question. So now what is that slight modification that has to be introduced, or with that particular modification will everything go well or not? All the details we will be studying in the next class. So today I have given you the prerequisite which you might need for the next session. Make sure you revise today's lecture because I will be meeting you again with lots of more concepts. Okay. So till that time, take care. Bye-bye.